In a world where dreams collapse before they even begin. In a world where legends are not born, but forged through pain, sacrifice, and unstoppable courage. There comes a moment, a single moment, when an ordinary person decides to rise above everything trying to break them. This channel, Lady Legends, brings you those stories. Stories of warriors. Stories of dreamers. Stories of those who started from nothing, but refused to stay nothing. And today, we open the chapter of a life that changed the world. A life built through storms, failures, heartbreaks, and unbelievable determination. A life that reminds us that destiny does not choose you. You choose your destiny. So sit back. Let your mind open. Let your heart listen. Because what you are about to hear is not just a story. It is a message, a lesson, a reminder that greatness is possible for anyone, even for those the world once doubted. Welcome to a journey where every second reveals a new truth, and every truth inspires a new spark inside you. This is the beginning, not the peaceful kind of silence, but the heavy, overwhelming silence a child feels when life isn't gentle, when the world outside is loud, unpredictable, and unforgiving. Imagine a small house, walls thin enough for voices to pass through, but thick enough to hide dreams behind. It's the kind of place where the lights flicker not because of design, but because bills weren't always paid on time. Inside that house lived a child, not extraordinary by appearance, not surrounded by wealth or luxury, but carrying a hidden universe inside the heart. Every morning began the same, with the echo of footsteps, the rustle of worn-out clothes, and the quiet hope that today might be a little easier than yesterday. The child would wake up before the sun, not out of excitement, but because sleep was never deep, never safe, never peaceful. When life is unstable, even dreams feel fragile. There were days when breakfast was small, and days when it didn't exist at all. Times when the refrigerator hummed louder than the family, as if trying to fill the silence no one else dared to break. But even in struggle, there was beauty. A mother's tired smile, a father's silent determination, siblings finding laughter in the smallest things, moments of warmth hidden between waves of hardship. And in the middle of all of it, this child learned early what most adults learn too late. When life gives you nothing, you learn to create everything. This child watched the world closely, learning how people survive, how families support each other through storms, how pain can shape a person, but also how hope can save them. On the outside, this was just a simple childhood. On the inside, it was a battlefield where fear and courage fought every day, where doubt whispered, "You're not enough," and hope whispered back, "But you will be." Even in the smallest moments, the seed of greatness was growing. Every time the child walked to school, wearing shoes slightly too old, every time they pretended everything was fine just to protect the family, every time they sat alone imagining a better future, the universe took notice. Because legends don't grow in comfort. They grow in discomfort, uncertainty, and the places where most people give up. There was one evening, a moment that would shape the rest of this journey. The sky was turning orange, shadows stretching long across the neighborhood. The child sat outside on a broken wooden step, listening to the wind move through the streets. Life felt overwhelming. Dreams felt too far away. Everything felt like too much for such a small heart to carry. But then, something inside sparked. A feeling, quiet but powerful. A voice, not heard, but felt. A decision, not spoken, but deeply understood. I will not live like this forever. Not out of anger, not out of greed, but out of a deep awareness that this life, this struggle, did not represent the future. From that day forward, everything changed. The child began to see the world differently, not as a trap, but as a challenge, not as punishment, but as preparation. Every storm became a lesson. Every hard moment became training. Every painful memory became fuel. People might look at that child and see weakness, but the universe saw a warrior being formed, a legend in the making. Someone who would one day inspire millions. Not because life was easy, but because they survived what others could not. Letting you feel the weight of every day, the pressure of every decision, the quiet strength that slowly builds with each setback. This is not the chapter of success. This is the chapter of becoming. A slow, powerful, emotional unfolding of a soul learning to fight, to hope, to rise. My story has just begun, where childhood ends, in that fragile, trembling space between innocence and reality. The child has grown a little older now, not old enough to understand the world, but old enough to feel its weight. This chapter opens with a single moment, a morning that looked ordinary but wasn't ordinary at all. It was the day the child realized that the world does not wait for anyone, and sometimes the world breaks the gentle ones first. The morning that changed everything. The sun had just started to rise, casting pale gold light across the room. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars, dancing slowly, silently. The only beautiful thing in a space filled with tired walls. And dreams too big for such a small home. Inside, the child heard voices, soft at first, then sharper, then suddenly breaking like glass. Arguments were new. Stress wasn't new. But this morning felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, a tension that wrapped itself around the child's heart. When the child stepped out, eyes still half sleepy, the world suddenly felt colder. A mother wiping tears she didn't want anyone to see. A father pacing the room, face hard, jaw tight, as if carrying a weight too heavy to share. It was the first time the child realized, my parents are not invincible. That realization hits differently. It pulls the ground from under your feet. It forces a child to grow up faster. In that moment, innocence cracked, not broken completely, but split just enough for reality to seep in. When responsibilities comes too early. Over the next weeks, everything began to shift. Money became tighter. Conversations became shorter. Smiles became rare visitors instead of familiar friends. The child, still young, began to feel a strange pressure. A pressure no one said out loud. But everyone breathed. Help more. Complain less. Be strong. A child shouldn't have to carry such silent expectations. But life doesn't always ask permission. So the child stepped into responsibilities quietly. Helping around the house. Walking siblings to school. Understanding problems too early. Hiding worries too deeply. The world was slowly shaping them, not gently, but intentionally. Because legends are never formed in comfort. They are forged in the moments. When life demands more from you than you think you have. The first taste of unfairness. One evening, something happened, a moment that stays with a person forever. The child came home to find the father frustrated. Papers scattered on the table. Voices low and tense. Lost work. Lost income. Lost stability. The child wasn't supposed to hear it, but some truths break in, no matter how tightly you close the door. The father said softly, almost whispering against his own pain, I don't know how much longer we can survive this. At that age, the child didn't fully understand, but the heart understood. Fear, quiet and sharp, settled in. Not for toys, not for school, but for survival. This was the first true encounter with life's unfairness. The moment the child realized, life doesn't always give you what you deserve. Sometimes it just gives you what it wants. But instead of breaking, instead of drowning in fear, the child made a promise. I will become strong enough to change this. That promise became the foundation of everything that would follow. A secret dream begins to grow. As the world outside grew harsh, something inside the child grew stronger. A dream. At first it was small. A flicker. A quiet thought whispered late at night. But dreams born in struggle grow differently. They grow sharper, braver, hungrier. The child began imagining a different life. A life where the family didn't worry about money. A life where happiness wasn't rare. A life where success wasn't impossible. A life created not by luck, but by effort, courage, and unstoppable determination. Every night, while others slept, the child would lie awake staring at the ceiling, creating a future that felt impossible, but necessary. And that is how legends are born. Not with applause, not with miracles, but with a quiet desire that refuses to die. The world tries to break the child, but the world is not kind to dreamers. At school, the child began facing jealousy, bullying, and the cruelty of kids who sensed weakness, and found pleasure in targeting it. Whispers, mockery, isolation. It wasn't because the child was different, but because the child felt different. And children, even without understanding, attack anything that shines. Each insult chipped away at confidence. Each cruel comment left a scar. Each lonely moment taught a new lesson. But instead of collapsing, the child learned something powerful. People will try to break you when they see your strength before you see it yourself. This understanding would become a weapon later in life, a shield against betrayal, cruelty, with the child, now slightly older, stepping further into the world, but realizing that not all shadows come from outside. Some shadows come from the people closest to you, and the darkest moments that were yet to come. Life was no longer just a struggle against circumstance. It had started to show its teeth through human betrayal, the first cracks in trust, and the painful discovery that love and loyalty can sometimes hide danger. The arrival of the first darkness. It started subtly. Little lies, excuses, changes in behavior that seemed harmless at first. He, the one who was supposed to be safe, dependable, protective, began acting differently. There were late nights unaccounted for, phone screens always hidden, answers too rehearsed, and a charm that now felt like manipulation. The child noticed. The mother noticed. But at first nobody wanted to believe it. Nobody wanted to accept that someone could be so cruel under the guise of love. But cruelty is patient. It waits for the smallest cracks in your defenses. It waits until you are most vulnerable. And then it strikes. The subtle betrayal. It began with small things. Disappearing money. Unexplained absences. Promises that were never kept. Lies disguised as misunderstandings. These small betrayals stacked up like invisible bricks against the walls of the family's life. The child watched silently, learning, noticing, realizing that words can hide truth and smiles can mask evil. At this stage, betrayal wasn't violent yet. It was quiet, poisonous, like a slow drip of water on stone, gradually wearing away the foundation of trust. First signs of danger. One evening, the child overheard a conversation. The adult voice, smooth, almost gentle, but cold underneath. Don't tell anyone. Let them think everything is fine. Those words were chilling. The child didn't fully understand them yet, but the heart understood. And that understanding created fear. A fear that whispered, not everyone who smiles at you is your ally. At night, the child lay awake thinking, who can we trust? Who is truly on our side? What do we do when the people closest to us hide poison behind love? The first confrontation. Eventually, the lies became too heavy to ignore. A simple question was asked. Why are you lying? The response was sudden, sharp, and cruel. A glare, a voice raised, a denial so firm that it shook everyone in the room. The adult, the supposed protector, became the oppressor. Trust became fragile. Love became a battlefield. The child learned a vital lesson. Not all strength is physical. Not all power is visible. Some power lives in manipulation, in deceit, in the ability to make others question reality. And in that realization, a survival instinct was born. Learning to observe. The child began observing more closely. Tone of voice, body language, hidden gestures, secret glances, patterns of behavior. It was as if life was teaching early lessons in psychology, strategy, and human nature. Because survival would depend on noticing these small signals, on understanding that appearances are never what they seem, and that the world can be far crueler than any imagined danger. First, emotional wounds. With deceit came emotional injury. The child saw tears hidden behind smiles, anger disguised as calm, words meant to manipulate, promises meant to trap. It was the first encounter with betrayal that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves a mark on the soul, a slow, persistent ache that stays with you. The child felt confusion, fear, and frustration, but also a growing determination to protect loved ones, to understand danger, to prepare for the battles life was already quietly preparing. The family feels the strain. At this point, the household became tense. Conversations were guarded. Smiles became rare. Silence filled rooms. Fear replaced joy. Children learned to tiptoe around words. Even a small misstep could provoke anger. Even a tiny question could spark conflict. And all the while, the child kept a quiet observation. One day I will never be powerless again. One day I will see everything clearly. One day I will not be caught off guard. Where trust and patience are tested to their limits, the world that once seemed navigable now feels like a storm without end. This chapter is about financial collapse, betrayal of responsibility, and the harsh lessons life forces upon a young heart and family. The first cracks in financial security. It started quietly at first. Small mistakes, missed deadlines, forgotten payments. At home, the tension was subtle at first. A worried glance here, a hushed conversation there. But slowly, the cracks widened. The father, once a figure of stability, began struggling to keep the family afloat. The bills piled up, and debts began to accumulate like dark clouds, suffocating the house in silence. The child watched this helplessly. Once again, the world revealed a lesson. Even those we trust most can falter under pressure. It was no longer just a household problem. It became a test of endurance, patience, and awareness. Witnessing responsibility shatter. Money disappeared in ways that no one fully understood. Conversations about finances became arguments. Late payments, calls from creditors, worried neighbors, all became part of daily life. The child saw firsthand how desperation changes people, how stress twists relationships, how trust can erode silently, like water wearing down rock. This was no ordinary lesson. This was the harsh introduction to how fragile human systems are and how quickly everything can fall apart. The first lessons of survival. The child realized that understanding human behavior alone would not be enough. Survival required action, observation, and preparation. Small errands became exercises in awareness. Family arguments became lessons in psychology. Hidden motives became puzzles to solve. Even when adults failed, the child learned to adapt. Because life doesn't pause for those who are waiting to understand. Life moves, and it demands that you move with it or be crushed. The financial storm intensifies. Soon, the financial instability escalated. Loan notices arrived. Rent reminders piled up. Household purchases were limited. Occasional arguments erupted over every small expense. Every day became a battle for survival. Every night was spent in quiet reflection, calculating, imagining solutions, trying to stay calm. The child learned to take responsibility, silently carrying weight far heavier than their years. Observing adult weakness. Part of this chapter is about understanding human flaws. The father became irritable and tense, often blaming circumstances or others. The mother carried her own worries silently, shielding the child from most of the pain. But even that shield had cracks. The child began to see the patterns of failure, mismanagement of resources, impulsive decisions, emotional reactions rather than calculated ones, a lack of long-term planning. These lessons were painful to observe, but invaluable. The first taste of responsibility. The child began helping more, budgeting the little money available, running errands to avoid extra costs, protecting younger siblings from the stress, learning negotiation skills, observation, and timing. Every task became a preparation for survival. Every challenge a step toward understanding the harsh realities of life. By now, the child had internalized one important truth. Life will not save you. You must save yourself, and sometimes save others too. Witnessing loss and betrayal. Then came the most painful lesson. Seeing a trusted family member, someone supposed to be responsible, reliable, and loving, betray that trust. It started with small disappearances of money, little lies about business or work, unexplained trips and excuses. The child realized something devastating. Even people who seem dependable can become a source of destruction. It was no longer just about surviving life's external challenges. It was about navigating danger within the family itself. With the family already under immense pressure, emotionally, financially, and socially. But life, as always, has another challenge: the darkness of temptation and the destructive patterns of those who betray trust. This chapter explores how betrayal escalates from subtle lies into addiction, reckless behavior, and the disintegration of relationships. The first signs of temptation. At first, it seemed harmless. Just a drink after work. Just a night out with friends. Just a small escape from stress. But small escapes often lead to long falls. The adult in this story began staying out later, dressed differently, smelling of smoke and alcohol, with energy and confidence that felt alien to the family who once knew him. The child noticed the changes immediately. The casual smiles became flirtatious. Casual stories became exaggerations. Casual friendships became secretive associations. And slowly, the adult's charm turned into manipulation. He wasn't just having fun. He was hunting attention, addicted to thrill, and slowly losing control. The allure of nightlife. Nightclubs, bars, and parties became regulars in his life. Bright lights, loud music, and intoxicated laughter replaced the once peaceful home. Women's attention became addictive, and soon, nights at home became rare. He flirted openly. He dated indiscriminately. Even when the family waited at home, worrying, he was somewhere else entirely, immersed in the chaos of indulgence. The child observed this silently, learning patterns, learning the subtle signs of addiction, learning that some people cannot be trusted with power, money, or love. This was the first lesson in recognizing human weakness disguised as charm. Financial recklessness intensifies. With the nightlife came more financial damage. Money stolen or misused for entertainment. Gifts bought for strangers. Loans taken secretly. Family savings spent without consent. Every reckless night came with a price, and the child watched the household struggle to cover the consequences. Each lost rupee, each wasted night, was another painful lesson in responsibility and the dangers of indulgence. The emotional toll on the family. The mother and children suffered silently. Every missed night became a growing void. Every lie, every manipulation, every flirtation chipped away at trust. Children learned to hide feelings. The mother learned to mask pain. The child learned to observe, protect, and predict. The family had to adapt to chaos while hoping for the return of normalcy that never came. The first confrontation with addiction. One night, the child confronted the adult. "Why are you leaving us? Why are you hurting everyone you promised to protect?" The adult laughed. Not joyfully, but mockingly. "You're too serious. Life is for enjoying. You're boring." This response marked a turning point. The child realized reasoning with destruction is futile. From that moment, observation, preparation, and strategic patience became essential survival tools. Understanding the nature of manipulation. The adult's behavior wasn't random. It followed patterns. Gaining attention from women. Avoiding responsibility. Hiding debts. Breaking family routines. Exploiting weaknesses. The child learned a painful but vital lesson. People who betray are rarely sudden. Their patterns are consistent, and the smart ones can be predicted. This understanding would later become a shield in the darkest days. The first sense of betrayal within love. The emotional heartbreak intensified as the adult betrayed the family daily. Missing celebrations. Ignoring children. Lying to the mother. Spending nights elsewhere. And the child realized something profound. Love alone cannot protect you. Trust alone cannot save you. The world will test you, and some will fail you deliberately. The emotional pain built a layer of resilience, forcing the child to mature far beyond the years. Begins with the tension reaching its peak. The family is stretched beyond endurance. The adults' betrayals, addictions, and reckless behavior have finally brought the household to a point of no return. This chapter explores emotional collapse, the fracture of trust, and the painful path towards separation and divorce. The last straw. The incidents that had once been small. The missed nights, the lies, the flirtations, the financial mismanagement, now compounded into a mountain too heavy to bear. The mother, exhausted and worn from years of emotional labor, finally reached the point where she could no longer protect her children from the chaos. The child, now older, understood the magnitude of the situation. The home, once a sanctuary, had become a battlefield. The decision to separate was not sudden. It was the accumulation of years of betrayal, loss, and unfulfilled promises. Emotional collapse. The announcement of divorce shattered the family like lightning striking a tree. Tears flowed endlessly. Anger erupted unpredictably. Silent resentment lingered in the air. The child experienced a profound sense of loss. Loss of a father figure in the home. Loss of stability. Loss of what was supposed to be family. It was the first encounter with the reality that life can break hearts slowly and mercilessly. The silent strength of the mother. The mother, though devastated, displayed courage that would leave a lifelong imprint on the child. She organized finances with precision, managed the household, and created boundaries to protect the children from further emotional harm. In her resilience, the child learned an important lesson. Strength is not loud. Courage is not always visible. Sacrifice can be quiet but powerful. The child's role in protecting the family. With the separation underway, the child assumed new responsibilities. Shielding younger siblings from conflict. Observing every move of the father to anticipate danger. Managing household chores to maintain order. Offering emotional support to the mother. The child was now fully aware. Survival is not passive. It requires awareness, action, and emotional intelligence. Witnessing betrayal at close range. The adult's destructive behavior intensified during the divorce proceedings. Attempts to manipulate the children. Lies about finances. Emotional blackmail. Open defiance against the family's boundaries. The child observed carefully, learning tactics, patterns, and weaknesses, knowledge that would become crucial in the future. This period was not just painful, it was an education in human behavior, deceit, and resilience. Moments of fear and uncertainty. Every day brought new anxieties. Will he retaliate? Will the children be safe? Will the family survive financially? The child's heart bore the weight of questions too heavy for anyone so young. Yet, each challenge strengthened determination and forged emotional resilience. The turning point, acceptance. Eventually, the family accepted the reality. The father figure could no longer be trusted. The marriage was irreparable. Separation and legal boundaries were the only path forward. Acceptance did not mean relief. Acceptance did not mean happiness. Acceptance meant preparing for survival and emotional endurance. The child learned the most painful but valuable lesson. Life will take what you love. Life will break what you hold dear. Your only control is over your response. On a quiet evening after the divorce is finalized, the family is fractured, yet still standing. The mother is exhausted but resolute. The children are cautious but learning. The child sits alone, reflecting on everything. Lessons in betrayal. Lessons in resilience. Lessons in observation. Lessons in survival. And quietly, the child makes a vow. I will never allow myself or my loved ones to be powerless again. I will learn, I will grow, and I will rise stronger than the pain I have endured. This moment marks the birth of unwavering determination, the kind that will guide the child through every storm to come. Descent into darkness, drugs and crime, begins with the aftermath of the divorce. The father, now untethered and consumed by his own desires, begins a dangerous spiral into drugs, crime, and reckless behavior. This chapter explores the dark transformation of a man who was once part of the family and how his actions ripple through the lives of everyone around him. The first step into darkness. After the separation, the adult had nothing left to hold him accountable. The stability of family life gone. The responsibilities that once shaped him gone. The social obligations gone. And in this void, temptation appeared. It started small, experimenting with substances to escape reality, spending nights with people who encouraged reckless behavior, immersing in environments fueled by thrill and indulgence. The child watched from a distance, noticing the rapid deterioration of someone once trusted. The addiction takes hold. The substance use intensified quickly. Alcohol became a daily escape. Drugs offered temporary relief from guilt, fear, and shame. Nightlife and reckless freedom became his only focus. What began as casual indulgence became compulsion. What once was charming became manipulative. What once was responsible became destructive. The child realized the devastating truth. Addiction doesn't just destroy the individual, it destroys everyone connected to them. The ripple effect on family. Even from a distance, the father's actions were devastating. Financial manipulation continued. Emotional blackmail persisted. Threats and intimidation became frequent. The mother and children had to navigate not only the divorce, but also the emerging danger of a man who had lost all restraint. The child's observations deepened. Understanding human weakness. Predicting destructive behavior. Preparing for confrontations without direct conflict. The child's emotional intelligence grew faster than any normal adolescent, forged in the fires of betrayal and danger. The criminal world beckons. With addiction came opportunity, or rather, danger disguised as opportunity. The father began associating with dubious characters. Suppliers and distributors of illegal substances. Criminal elements operating under the guise of business. Mafia-linked figures who prey on vulnerable, reckless individuals. This was not a slow fall. It was a plunge into a world where lawlessness reigned. The child, now acutely aware of patterns, feared for the family's safety, but continued learning quietly. How crime masks itself as opportunity. How loyalty is conditional in dangerous circles. How desperation fuels illegal activity. The first encounters with the law. The father's choices inevitably drew attention from authorities. Police investigations. Surveillance and questioning. Pressure from associates. Increased paranoia. Each incident revealed the high stakes of living a life fueled by drugs and crime. The child began to understand the delicate balance between survival and self-destruction, and the consequences that ripple far beyond one individual. Witnessing the transformation. The father became unrecognizable. Charisma replaced by recklessness. Confidence replaced by paranoia. Promises replaced by lies. Responsibility replaced by chaos. The child understood something vital. People will reveal their true character when they lose accountability. This observation became a cornerstone of the child's understanding of human nature, crucial for future protection and strategic thinking. Emotional impact on the child. Emotionally, this was one of the hardest periods. Fear for the safety of siblings and mother. Anger and frustration at helplessness. Sadness at watching someone beloved self-destruct. Yet, within this pain, a fire burned. Determination to rise above chaos. Resolve to never be powerless. Awareness that survival sometimes requires preparation for inevitable dangers. End of Part 7. The Silent Vow of Strength. Closes on a quiet night, long after the father disappears into another dangerous circle of drugs, crime, and shadowy dealings. The child sits alone, reflecting on the lessons of betrayal, addiction, and crime. On the dangers of human weakness, left unchecked. On the personal promise to grow stronger, smarter, and more vigilant. A vow is made silently, yet with unshakable certainty. I will never allow chaos to control my life. I will rise above betrayal, addiction, and destruction. I will protect those I love, no matter what it takes. The shadows deepen, mafia, crime, and arrest. Begins with the father fully immersed in dangerous criminal networks, where every decision carries consequences. This chapter explores mafia connections, the deepening spiral of crime, and the inevitable collision with law enforcement, while the child observes, learns, and prepares for the future. The first steps into the underworld. After years of reckless indulgence, the father began connecting with mafia figures and criminal suppliers, parties and meetings with dangerous individuals, small illegal trades disguised as business deals, partnerships with people who had no conscience. At first, it seemed like temporary alliances for survival and profit. But the child, now older and deeply observant, could see the dangerous patterns forming. Every handshake was a test. Every smile was a mask hiding ulterior motives. Every deal carried potential betrayal. The mafia world. The criminal network operated on fear, loyalty, and power. Violence was unspoken, but ever-present. Trust was currency. Obedience was survival. The father, now addicted and desperate, became entangled in this shadow world. The child understood something vital. Power without wisdom is dangerous. Influence without morality is destructive. Addiction without control is fatal. These lessons were living education in the nature of crime and human weakness. The expansion of danger. Soon, the father's criminal activities escalated. Larger transactions, riskier connections, increased exposure to law enforcement, growing paranoia among associates. At home, the child noticed tension like never before. Phone calls in hushed tones, secret meetings at odd hours, fearful glances at unexpected visitors. The child understood that the world outside could suddenly intrude at any moment, and the consequences could be catastrophic. The first arrest. The inevitable happened. Police intervention disrupted the father's activities. Raids and interrogations. Confiscation of assets. Arrests of associates. The father, now cornered and exposed, faced the full weight of the law. For the child, this was a moment of shock and clarity. Danger is real and immediate. Actions have consequences. Survival depends on strategy and vigilance. The arrest marked the first tangible fallout from years of reckless behavior, and the child's observations became sharper than ever. Lessons in human nature. During this period, the child absorbed crucial lessons. How criminal networks operate. How people manipulate, deceive, and control others. How power is wielded and lost. How to protect oneself and loved ones in a world full of chaos. The child's emotional growth accelerated. Emotional intelligence became sharper. Strategic thinking developed. Observation and patience became survival tools. This chapter was not only about the father's descent, it was about the child's evolution into resilience and tactical awareness. The emotional toll, the arrest, and its consequences were devastating emotionally. Fear for the father's life and safety. Concern for siblings and mother. Frustration at the chaos. Anger at the destruction of family stability. Yet, within this emotional storm, the child began internalizing courage and resolve. I cannot control others, but I can control my response. I will survive. I will protect. I will rise. These lessons were far more valuable than any formal education could provide. Closes with a quiet night after the father's arrest. The streets are silent. The house is tense, and the children lie awake, processing fear, anger, and uncertainty. The child sits by the window, looking out at the dark world beyond. The father is in prison. The criminal network is disrupted. The family is still vulnerable. But the child understands something powerful. I have learned more in these years than many learn in a lifetime. I will not repeat these mistakes. I will rise above betrayal, crime, and chaos. And I will protect those I love, no matter what. This moment marks the culmination of lessons in survival, resilience, and human nature, preparing the child for the next stage of life. The long shadow. Prison, time, and lessons learned. Begins with the father serving a 15-year prison sentence, leaving the family to cope with absence, fear, and the harsh reality of consequences. This chapter explores life behind bars, the child's observations, emotional growth, and the rare glimpses of contact with the father, while highlighting resilience and the enduring human spirit. The reality of imprisonment. The moment the father entered prison, the world shifted again. The walls of the house felt heavier. The absence of the adult loomed large. Silence replaced chaos in a different, more painful way. The child, now older and wiser, observed carefully how absence affects a family, how fear evolves when someone loved is lost to the system, how survival requires emotional endurance, patience, and careful observation. Prison was not just a punishment for the father. It became a lesson for the child. Life has consequences, and actions have lasting effects. The father's new world. Inside, the father faced a world governed by rules, fear, and hierarchy, harsh authority, dangerous inmates, constant tension, lessons in survival under threat. The child learned indirectly from these circumstances how power dynamics operate under pressure, how strategy and patience are essential, how even the strongest fall if they cannot adapt. Every report, every story, every letter from the father became a source of understanding human behavior. The emotional impact on the family. Back at home, the mother carried the household on her shoulders. The child balanced responsibilities and emotions. Siblings navigated fear, uncertainty, and occasional confusion. Visits to the prison became rare and emotionally charged. Joy at seeing him alive. Anxiety about safety. Heartbreak at witnessing the father's transformation. These encounters reinforced critical lessons. Strength comes from endurance. Love exists even in difficult circumstances. Survival is about resilience and careful planning. Witnessing consequences. Every day behind bars was a reminder of what happens when life spirals out of control. Relationships fractured irreparably. Freedom is lost. Reputation is damaged. Opportunities vanish. The child understood something vital. Actions echo far beyond the present. Decisions today can shape decades of tomorrow. This understanding created a deep sense of responsibility and emotional maturity. Personal growth and observation. The child, observing both the prison consequences and the household, learned how to navigate fear, how to protect loved ones, how to anticipate human behavior, how to develop patience, strategy, and emotional control. The absence of the father became a catalyst for personal growth. The child transformed challenges into lessons, mistakes into wisdom, and chaos into preparation. Occasional visits, emotional complexity. Every visit to the prison carried joy, relief, and nostalgia. Pain, anger, and disappointment. Questions that could not be answered. The father's presence was both comforting and unsettling. Dangerous inmates. Constant tension. Lessons in survival under threat. The child learned indirectly from these circumstances how power dynamics operate under pressure, how strategy and patience are essential, how even the strongest fall if they cannot adapt. Every report, every story, every letter from the father became a source of understanding human behavior. The emotional impact on the family. Back at home, the mother carried the household on her shoulders. The child balanced responsibilities and emotions. Siblings navigated fear, uncertainty, and occasional confusion. Visits to the prison became rare and emotionally charged. Joy at seeing him alive. Anxiety about safety. Heartbreak at witnessing the father's transformation. These encounters reinforced critical lessons. Strength comes from endurance. Love exists even in difficult circumstances. Survival is about resilience and careful planning. Witnessing consequences. Every day behind bars was a reminder of what happens when life spirals out of control. Relationships fractured irreparably. Freedom is lost. Reputation is damaged. Opportunities vanish. The child understood something vital. Actions echo far beyond the present. Decisions today can shape decades of tomorrow. This understanding created a deep sense of responsibility and emotional maturity. Personal growth and observation. The child, observing both the prison consequences and the household, learned how to navigate fear, how to protect loved ones, how to anticipate human behavior, how to develop patience, strategy, and emotional control. The absence of the father became a catalyst for personal growth. The child transformed challenges into lessons, mistakes into wisdom, and chaos into preparation. Occasional visits, emotional complexity. Every visit to the prison carried joy, relief, and nostalgia. Pain, anger, and disappointment. Questions that could not be answered. The father's presence was both comforting and unsettling. The child witnessed regret, fear, and vulnerability. Learned how mistakes shape character. Observed firsthand how time and consequences alter people. Each visit became a lesson in understanding human complexity and resilience. The long road of waiting. Years passed. 15 long years stretched endlessly. The household slowly adapted. The child grew into a young adult, more aware, stronger, and wiser. Emotional resilience became second nature. Through every challenge, the child carried one unwavering thought. I will not repeat these mistakes. I will rise above betrayal, addiction, and chaos. I will protect what is mine, and those I love. Reflection and determination. With a quiet evening as the child reflects on all that has happened, betrayal, addiction,
crime,
prison, family survival, the child understands that life is unpredictable, painful, and often cruel. Yet, within the pain, a fire burns brighter than ever. I have learned from every hardship. I have grown through every challenge. I am ready for the future. I will rise above all that seeks to destroy me. Redemption, reunion, and lessons learned. With the father's release from prison after serving his full sentence, this chapter explores reunion, reflection, emotional closure, and the ultimate lessons of resilience, forgiveness, and personal growth. It marks the final stage of this epic, heart-wrenching story. The day of release. The day began with tension, anticipation, and hope. The family gathered quietly. The children, now grown, held mixed feelings, hope, fear, resentment. The mother, steady and composed, prepared for an encounter years in the making. As the prison gates opened, the father stepped into freedom, a changed man in appearance, but still haunted by his past. For the child, now an adult, this was a complex moment. Relief at seeing him alive. Pain at remembering all the destruction. Awareness of the lessons life had forced upon them. This was not just a reunion. It was a reckoning. The emotional reunion. The family embraced, tears streaming, emotions overwhelming. The children confronted their feelings of betrayal and abandonment. The mother maintained strength, forgiveness, and composure. The father expressed regret, shame, and the burden of consequences. Every word, every glance, every silence carried decades of pain, growth, and understanding. The child realized, forgiveness is not for the one who failed. It is for those who continue living. Reflection on the past. As the family gathered, memories of the past resurfaced. Childhood hardships, financial collapse, nightlife and addiction, betrayal and divorce, crime and prison. The child reflected on every lesson. Observation and awareness are survival tools. Emotional intelligence is as powerful as physical strength. Resilience is forged in the fires of adversity. True courage is surviving when everything is against you. These reflections solidified the child's transformation into a strong, strategic, and emotionally mature individual. Lessons from the father. The father, having endured prison, addiction, and mafia entanglements, shared the painful wisdom of his experiences. Actions have consequences far beyond imagination. Choices define destiny. Life cannot be escaped through indulgence or manipulation. Redemption is only possible through accountability and change. The child listened, absorbing every lesson while silently measuring. I will not repeat these mistakes. I will rise above all destructive patterns. Healing and forgiveness. Over time, the family began to heal. Open communication replaced silence. Boundaries replaced chaos. Love matured into understanding. Forgiveness was not instant. It was a process, a careful rebuilding of trust, guided by actions, not just words. The child realized. Healing requires patience, wisdom, and emotional strength. It is a deliberate choice, not a momentary decision. The strength of the child, now adult. The child, now fully grown, embodies the lessons of a lifetime. Strategic thinking and observation. Emotional intelligence and resilience. Courage, patience, and understanding of human nature. Ability to protect and lead loved ones. All hardships, betrayal, addiction, crime, prison, and family collapse have been transformed into wisdom and strength. The closing reflection. As the sun sets on this story, the family sits together, aware of the scars but also the growth. Life is unpredictable. People may fail and betray. Danger lurks in unexpected forms. Yet, within all of this, hope, love, and courage prevail. We cannot choose the hardships of life, but we can choose how we respond. We can rise above chaos, protect those we love, and turn pain into strength. The child, now an adult, reflects quietly. I have learned more than I could have imagined. I have survived, grown, and risen stronger. No darkness can overpower the light of resilience, courage, and wisdom. The final vow. The story concludes with a powerful, silent vow. I will continue to protect, to grow, and to rise. I will honor the lessons of the past. I will create a future stronger than any hardship I have endured. This marks the end of the journey, a story of betrayal, struggle, crime, prison, resilience, and ultimate redemption. Thank you for listening to this incredible story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Your support means the world, and it helps us share more amazing stories with you. Stay tuned for more.